All right. Well, Kim, welcome to the Elevated Life. We are so excited to have you on and talking about it's never too late to start something new or that you love, or to go back to the things that you love. And I think you're the perfect person to share your wisdom on this.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here and talk about it.
Yeah, you are such a bright light. It's been so fun getting to know you, getting to share on your podcast, The Elevated Stylist. Like when I came across that, I knew that we were meant to be together. I knew that we needed to collab, and that bringing you on to The Elevated Life would be an extension of the brand that you've already created. So obviously you're all about elevating. And for us, that has a lot to do with mindset. So can you start with describing how you came up with naming the Elevated Stylist podcast?
Yeah. So, okay. The way I thought about it was, and this kind of ties into just like my story and like where I started with hair. But when I first started doing hair, it was back in 2014 and I did not like it. I didn't really care for the places I worked at and like, my bosses and all that kind of stuff. But then when I went back into doing hair, which was like 6 years later, I noticed such a change in the industry. And when I was thinking about it, I was like, well, I think it's because so many of new hairstylists are coming in and taking over, and we're not willing to do the things we used to do, like squeeze in appointments last minute or like emotional discounting and all that kind of stuff. And I think because of that, we have worked so much on ourselves as human beings that because of that, we have elevated this whole industry as a whole. But I feel like it really just starts with us and who we are at an emotional level.
I love that so much. And there is a different type of hairdresser being born, and it's coming out of all the pain, the trauma, the suffering, the overworking, the undercharging that we've all experienced. And it's really, I always think like Chris and I were the leaders of people who are okay with having tattoos now, like, cause we were so young. And I feel like we are that generation of hairdressers that is like putting a new boundary on what we'll tolerate and what we won't.
You're welcome.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's so true.
I love spending time in the salon. It's amazing because in Brit's salon, she's surrounded by really incredible women, but you can see that how much they give drains on them. I mean, it's just like you see them at the end of the day and they're just like, oh, shit. Like I feel like I just got whipped for 8, 10, 12 hours, where they've been working. And it's amazing to see. I remember Brit fired a client. I was in the salon one day. I was actually waiting outside the salon, and Brit fired a client. Like it was just like hey, we're cutting the appointment. Like this is over. And what's interesting is that when the person left, one of the people that is near Brit came out and was like, did I just hear you fire a client? And Brit's like, yeah, of course. Like I only do people's hair that I want to do their hair. Like
7 or above.
I'm deciding that these people are in my experience. They're really guests and visitors in my reality. And so I'm holding the frame here. And the person said, I didn't know I could fire clients. And it's weird how watching other people, especially mentors, especially people sort of figured it out, like you're talking about, there have been more people who have figured it out lately, as opposed to like Brit's mom's generation, who literally just bent over backwards nonstop. Oh,
she never used texturizing shears. Like, come on.
Yeah, it's incredible to see how other stylists are helping other stylists, because I think for a long time, people kept all the secrets kind of tucked in and said, well, I'm doing this stuff, but I can't share this with other people. They'll build their business like me, or they'll get successful too, which is crazy. What we're seeing now is that so many people want to lift up others and be like, hey, I just figured out this new cool thing. Come over here and check this out. Like this, being a part of this community for me has really allowed me to get to know women in a different way, mainly because just women all around where Brit is, but it's so cool to see. That's why you
show up.
Duh. I mean, like, come on, I'm smart. It's just amazing to see an industry where people will help other people, because in so many others, it's not like that. It's all about competitive. There's no cooperation that happens. Can you talk a little bit about how important it is for people to connect with others and share the growth and the ideas that they have? And I'm sure that's why you have a podcast and everything. It's like, I'm sure that you're in it for the same reason we are. So we got to share. None of this information is good if we just keep it all inside.
No, totally. And I feel like that is where it even originally like started for me, was just listening to podcasts, because I was like, I feel like there's this whole, like, I don't know, thing going on where like you said, you don't want to tell people, or because you don't want them to get successful too. And it's just like so frustrating, because that's not, I feel like we all went into this industry because we want to share and like help other people grow. I truly feel like hairdressers are like healers in a way. And I feel like even just with clients and other people, like we just want other people to grow. We don't want to like gatekeep, you know?
So take us back, like, how did you even get into the hair industry? 2014, how old were you? What were you thinking? And what was the path that led you up to that point?
Oh my goodness. Okay. This is a wild ride.
Everybody drink your water, tune in.
Yeah, no. So, okay. So honestly, I really knew that I wanted to be a hairdresser from like the very beginning, like ever since I was a little girl. And so I went to cosmetology school. That was 2013 to 2014. And I was like, honestly, my parents were kind of like not happy about it. They were like, oh, you got to go to like college, do all that kind of stuff and do like the normal things that you're supposed to do. And I was like, no, like I want to do this. And so I tried so hard to like prove them wrong. But then I graduated, it was 2014. And I went into like a corporate salon and I was kind of like, not really my vibe, but like whatever. And honestly, at that point in time, like not a lot of people were doing assistant programs, or at least like near me, because I'm in Connecticut and it's like very small. And I'm like, maybe they were doing it, but like not near me. And so I just had to like dive right in. And I was like, I don't like doing that. Like, I'm so nervous. I don't know what I'm doing. Like in hair school, they don't teach you any of this stuff like that they do now. And I don't know. So I started in a corporate salon and I didn't like it, but then I went to another one. And you would think maybe I would try like an assistant program or something, but no, of course not. I just went to another corporate salon and like hated it, but it's okay. And so then that was for like a year and a half that I was there. And I really just didn't like it. And I like didn't like my boss. I didn't like the environment. I was just like, this is not meant for me. Like, and so then I felt so defeated because like my parents were like, oh, you have to go to college and you have to do that and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, no, I really wanted to go to hair school. And then I felt so just down because I was like, I just proved them wrong. Or like, I didn't prove them wrong because I wanted to. And I was like, oh, but so there was that was around 2015. And then I left and I went into retail and I was like, maybe this is for me. And so then I was there for I worked at Aeropostale and I started as a shift leader and I worked my way up to store manager. And I was there for like 4.5 years. And the company itself was great. But once again, retail, corporate, I'm like, I don't like that. It's not my vibe. And I quit and I had no like backup plan, whatever. I was just like, I'm just going to quit. I'll figure it out, like whatever. And then I actually went to this tarot reader and
I love her.
yeah. So I was like, I don't even know why I went. I was like, there was this crystal store that is like right near where I live. And I was like, oh, let me go in, whatever. They were doing this like whole, I don't even want to say like festival, but something like that. Like there was just a ton of tarot readers. It was like this whole big thing. And I had no idea. I literally just went in there for fun. And I was like, you know what? Let me go get, my cards read or whatever. And I went to this guy. And to this day, I wish I had his information because he made me record our like session. So I have it on my phone still. And he was talking about like, you should go back to doing hair, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, it's not for me. Like I tried, I did it and I failed. And then a year goes by after that. And I'm just like working like a part-time job at the bank. And once again, I feel like I have no purpose, honestly, at this point. And then I'm like 24 and I feel like I'm having a quarter life crisis. And I'm like, this sucks. I'm like, I need to do something. I don't know. I'm just so frustrated. And I reached out to one of my friends that I went to hair school with. And I was listening to that, the tarot reading on my phone because I had it recorded. And I was like, you know what? You never know. So I reached out to my friend and she was telling me that they were actually hiring for an assistant at her salon. And I was like, oh, okay. Like we do that. That's a thing. And so I went in and met with that salon owner. And that's how I started doing hair again, was by assisting her. And so that is pretty much how it all kind of came full circle and why I came back. And I've been doing it for like 3.5 years and I love it now.
That's such a wild journey that you went on. Can you talk about the mindset that you had when you felt like, quote, a failure with not like, obviously you're good at doing hair and you love and you wanted to do that, but your environment seemed to play a big part of the mindset and confidence that you had about yourself. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, no, totally. I don't know. I felt a lot of it was maybe just my age, and because I was so young and just going straight into hair and, not really knowing a lot and just not being confident in general. I was even just in school, honestly, like high school and middle school, I was very quiet, not outgoing at all. And I think going into hair school and then going out and working, just going straight into it, I was just so overwhelmed. And then just on top of it, like I said, not being confident. And I was like, this just isn't meant for me. And then I don't know, like I said, felt like a failure. And I feel like if I had a mentor in that point in my life, like a salon owner where I could assist her, I feel like that would have helped so much more. But like I said, I think it was just like a mix between my age and then just the environment and just not having a mentor in my life that made me feel that way.
There's a few really big keys that you've already talked about. Now, I want to make sure that our listeners are clued in on these. Number one is stop caring what your parents think about your life. It is your life. How important that is, I cannot stress enough.
My parents begged me to go to college. This
thing is built for you. It's also weird because, Brit has been extremely successful in the hair world. I mean, from being a stylist, having a salon, to mentoring people, to helping people build their salons, to being up on stage. And I don't think anyone was going to predict that. I mean, I definitely saw it. Talking about mentors, though, and the importance of having a mentor. Brit, I went up to her hair school. We met right when she was in hair school. And so I was already doing real estate investing. And so I would get done with work and drive up. She took night classes. So I would drive up and they would let me sit in there with her because Brit told them that if they didn't let me sit in there with her, that she would leave.
I'd quit.
She said, well, they said, hey, he can't come up here. And she goes, well, then I'm not a student here anymore.
I quit. I went home and I didn't show up the next day, and they called and they were like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, I'm fucking serious. I'm already looking at this other beauty school up the road. They're like, okay, he can come as long as you're doing a service on him. I'm like,
I got my hair done every day.
I literally washed and styled his hair every single day.
I love that. That's so
the
funny.
Important thing here is, though, I noticed in the school, they taught nothing about having a salon.
Oh yeah.
They teach you some skills, like how to do they teach you how to pass a test, right? And maybe if you go to a high-end school, maybe they teach you more. But what I learned from Brit's thing is that the education was very small, especially when it came to confidence. There was no confidence classes. No. There was nothing how to really communicate with your client, how to get them to educate them on products. That wasn't there. And so I'm sitting there watching, and I have a huge business background, and I'm thinking, babe, we can make the salon happen. I'm like, I got the skills. We can absolutely make this happen. And so I stepped in as a mentor. What was interesting is that her same run in with her first salon was like, this is shit. They were rude to her. They were mean in every way. And I was like, Brit is an all-star. I'm like, this girl can out-color everybody at her school. I'm like, they're not even giving her a chance. She hasn't even worked there yet. And they're already rude and mean. So a lot of times what your environment is, what kind of people you're around, how it makes you feel when you walk in. If you wake up in the morning and think, fuck work, if that's the first thing that comes to your mind,
quit.
You got to say, fuck
right
work.
now.
You got to start moving into a space where like you appreciate it, where you wake up and be like, I can't wait to see this client. I can't wait to help this person. I can't wait to get up and serve. Like that's how you should be feeling. And if you don't feel like that, you're not going to have the same kind of growth.
I mean, every time I ask hairstylists on using the 7 or above rule, do you have any clients that are less than a 7? And like every single time, everyone's head is like bobbing up and down. Yes. Like you can obviously identify them. Why are they still on your books? Like why would we allow for that?
It's such a shame. The other thing that you mentioned is that whenever you cross over into a new business, so a lot of people feel defeated, feel deflated once something they were going to do, especially if they put all their marbles in the basket, they feel defeated once it doesn't work out the first time. And truthfully, it almost never works out the first time. But if you leave that and go somewhere else, oftentimes the skills that you pick up in a different business that's completely unrelated relate.
Oh yeah.
I mean, 100%. There's so much carryover in terms of communication, in terms of how you set up your day, time management, stress management, energy management. All those things will be the same no matter what business that you're in. All those skills you can continuously refine. I think so many people feel like, well, I guess I'll just have to go back to this. No, I'm moving to this so that I can learn more, so I can go back to the first thing and do it even better. I love your story. I love it because I think that's the track so many people have. We are not this linear growth like this. This is bullshit. What it is a big circle. It's a big circle and you're constantly coming back here. But when you return here, you should be better. So it's coming back here. I'm better. I'm better. I'm better. And so it's not like this. It's not some path in the woods. It's circles. We're constantly going in these circles.
Yeah. I feel like, and feeling like looking back, do you really feel like you were a failure?
No, honestly, and I know this now because I feel like I've done so much inner work where I can look back and say, like, I really do believe everything happens for a reason. And like you were saying, like, you know, I went to retail and you're like, there's so many things that you can use now in your life. And that's just so true because I learned so much working in retail, like how to deal with customers, time management, all that, how to like actually build a team and employees and all that kind of stuff. Cause I was in charge of a whole store. And I'm like, now looking back, I truly needed that, even just to build my confidence in general. And then because of that, going into hair, I felt so much more better. Not even honestly, like I didn't remember a lot about doing hair. Like I had to relearn all of that, but actually getting clients and talking to people in that kind of way. If I didn't have that retail job, I would not be as confident as I am today. So I truly believe that.
Yeah, it's incredible how the universe works, like to help you develop your skills along the way. Like when you hit that breaking point where it's like, quote, I feel like a failure, the universe came in and said, well, here, let me give you an opportunity that will make you feel like a leader, like a winner, successful, like you have the skills and tools to be able to move forward. And it's so cool that you were able to circle back, and that Terrell reader was the like sparkle magic behind that. So like, shout out to him. That's incredible. But like, let's talk about that idea of it's not too late to start. What was your mindset now that you had grown confidence, you'd been out from behind the chair for long enough to forget how to balayage? Like, what was your mindset moving into like starting, feeling like, did you feel like that? Like this is too late to start again? Or did you have that like, fuck it, I'm just going for it? Like, what was your mindset then?
No, I was definitely very scared. I was like, because I was so scared to quote unquote fail again. And like, I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I feel like part of me was kind of just like, fuck it. Like there's nothing else to do. Not that there's nothing else, but I don't know. In my mind, I thought that because of course, you know, quarter life crisis. And I'm like, there's nothing else to do. Like I have to just try it again. You never know. But at the same time, I was like terrified. I remember the first day that I started working again, I was like, oh my God, like, am I doing this right? Like, I don't know. And like, at that time, I wasn't actually like, the owner didn't actually let me do hair. Also because of my license lapsing, I had to like actually retake the test and everything, which was terrifying as well. But yeah, she didn't actually let me do hair right off the bat. I was more so just watching her, but even just watching her, I was so scared. I'm like, I don't know, like, but I mean, of course, like I said, everything happens for a reason and it's okay. It was all okay at that time too. But no, like I said, in the beginning, I was terrified.
What advice would you give yourself at that stage, like starting that thing again, being terrified? Like, what advice would you give yourself now?
I would say just do it and stop thinking what everyone else cares. Or yeah, because I don't know. I feel like myself personally, I was so worried about what other people would think, like my parents, my friends, if I failed again. So I would just tell myself, like, there's no need to worry. Stop caring what other people think and just do it. And if it doesn't work out, that's fine. Like you'll understand along the way.
And typically the people that you care about their opinion are people that care about you. So isn't it silly that sometimes we think that they're going to judge us and think that we're just this big failure and fuck up, and that if we actually do fall down and fail, that they're not going to be there to support us? Like they're the people that love us. They want to see us win, you know?
No, totally. 100%. Like my parents, like, I don't know. I was so terrified about what they would think, but like, they literally love me. They're so happy for me now. They're so proud of me. And it's just like, why was I so worried in the first place?
You know, it's wild because one of the things that we're always talking about in here is that in order to feel the fear, in order to be scared, in order to feel this like terrified feeling, we have to create a future in our mind. You can't feel terrified in the present moment. It's not possible because there's no future that you're comparing it up against. So it's really interesting the way our feelings play into our level of success. And so it's so important as literally any profession or anything that you want to do in life. Maybe it's you're seeking out a relationship. Maybe it's just you want to do something new that you haven't done in a while. It's so important that we start using our visualization skills so that when we do go out and plan for a future, we're not planning a future that sucks. I don't want to be a part of a future that sucks. And so like, it's going to come up. Parts of it are going to suck. That's how life is. There are lots of ups and downs. But if I'm going to plan it, I'm not going to plan for it to be shit. And so I think so many of us are walking into situations and just planning for the worst, not like thinking, oh, this could be a worst case scenario. Can I live with that? Instead, we're like, okay, this is going to be the worst. Let's literally make it happen. Let's continuously visualize it, practice it until we make all the sucky parts happen. What would you tell a person? What kind of future should a person be planning for? If they have been out of a business for a while, or they are getting back into something and it's been a bit, or they've been burnt out on it, or whatever, what kind of mental, what kind of focus would they need? What kind of visualization would they need to say, shit, I got this. And if I don't, I'll fail, and then I'll figure it out and I'll get it then.
No, totally. That's a great question. I would say focus on a future that just makes you happy and makes you feel like you have a purpose. Because along the way, obviously, we don't know what's meant for us. I believe in, divine timing, and everything will happen as it's supposed to and unravel as it's supposed to. But I think for me personally, even though I can't really obviously predict the future, I can predict just a happy life and a purposeful life. And I think that is what I held at the forefront for so long, because I felt that everything I did didn't have a purpose. And I just kept that in my mind. And I was like, I just gotta have a purpose, gotta have a purpose. I gotta help people, make them feel better. Like, that's always what I've just wanted, is to just help people along the way and just to grow. And so I think having that at the forefront, it doesn't need to be so specific, but just having a happy and purposeful life.
Yeah, it's
However
so
that looks.
fascinating, because I always say your purpose is to feel joy, and no matter what that expression is for you, because it'll be different for me than it is for you, and it's definitely different for him, so like, it's so important for us to recognize that our purpose is to find and cultivate and bring that joy into our life by taking action and doing the things that bring more of that, and stop jumping into the toxic shit. So I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
You've shared about like the fears of starting late, right?
Mhm.
But now you've started something new in this career, and that's a podcast. And I know if you're anything like us, where you have this great idea and then it sits in the closet for like way too long, and then finally you get around to doing it. Can you talk about the mindset you had in starting your podcast? Was it I'm afraid, or fuck it, let's just do it, or no, now I know my purpose and I want to share that? Like, where were you at when you were thinking about creating the podcast?
I think a little bit of me was still scared, but I think it definitely not as much as I've been scared in the past before. But I think that just goes along with everything that I do in general. That's new. I'm always going to be like nervous, because I'm like, what if it doesn't work out? But what if it does? And so when this started, I had this on my heart for a while. And my coach at the time, I was telling her about it. I was like, I kind of want to do this thing. I don't know. I kind of want to make a podcast. And she was like, just do it. And I was like, well, I don't know. Like, what do I talk about? And she's like, well, what are you good at? And, I thought back to my career and then just where I'm at now. And so after I started doing hair and assisting again, I left to do chair rental. And so because of that, I had to build a whole clientele. And I was like, it was terrifying again. But it all worked out, and I did it. And I, built my home clientele through social media. So I knew I was really good at that. And she was like, just kind of talk about that, like social media, getting clients, all that kind of stuff, like what you wish you knew in beauty school. That was like my first podcast episode. And I was like, okay. She's like, just try it out. You never know. So I tried it out, and that was back in August, but it was on my mind for like a few months before, probably about like 3-4 months beforehand. But I started it in August, and I was like, you know what? I am just going to put out this episode. And if one person listens to it and gets something out of it, then I've done my job. Like, that's okay. It doesn't need to be anything huge. I just want to share what I've learned. So I did that. And then I didn't really start taking it actually seriously until about December. And I was like, okay, it's go time, because people were actually listening to it. And I was like, wow, I was like, this is crazy. So I was like, you know what, let me take this seriously. And I started taking it seriously from December, obviously up until now, where I'm at now. And it was February 7th. I got like 1,000 downloads. And I was like,
That's
holy
Chrissy's
shit.
birthday, and that's incredible.
So no way. Oh my God.
Yeah, that's wild.
I was thinking about it before, like I came on here, and I was like, what was 1,000 download? And I went back and looked, and it was February 7th, because I made a post about it. Isn't that wild?
That's huge. That's so cool.
So yeah, so it was like literally 2 months, and I was like, that's insane. I literally thought only like 10 people would listen to this.
Wow.
And I was like, that's insane. Like, that's so crazy to me.
Can you talk about how you show up differently when you're, I'm just going to try this out, this might be a flop, versus this is serious, I'm going to be a pro and I'm going to make this happen? Can you talk about the difference between those two people?
Yeah, I think when it was me just going into it at first, I was like, whatever. I think part of me was just more relaxed and at peace and trying not to force something. Whereas now that I'm forcing it now, because I don't want to say that, I feel like that's not like a good way to resemble how I'm feeling right now. But now that I'm actually, taking it seriously, I think actually taking the time to make the podcast episodes a weekly thing. I make it come out every Thursday. I'm very diligent about it. So I don't want to say the word forced because I feel like that's not
Consistent.
the right word. Yeah, I'm consistent. Yeah. So that energy is there. Whereas before I was like, I'm just going to put it out, whatever, a random day.
When you
It's
feel
okay.
like it.
Yeah. So I feel like that. I was more just calm and at peace. And I feel like I still am right now, but I'm just more so like consistent about it.
It's so true. It seems
sense.
like almost every goal that I find that people have, half the battle is really just showing up. Just consistently showing up. You find people in the gym, they come in January, by February, they don't have a gym membership anymore. And you have that same old guy in the corner still working out 8 months later. He looks phenomenal. You're like, you look so much better. I'm like, hey, what's your secret? I came to the gym on the days I didn't feel like it. I still showed up. I'm still doing this for me. I think it's so important in business, in our relationships. I mean, just in our partnership, it's showing up. It's being there, being like, well, you can't just count on me every once and again when I feel like it. It's, hey, I'm here. I'm here. I'm the person. I'm showing up for you today. You want to come absorb some of this wisdom that I've got? Come on, we got you today. And I think that what that does, because you talk about purpose, which is a really fascinating conversation, because oftentimes the purpose that we have for ourselves is different than what other people see. So often, whenever we pursue something that lights us up, whenever we say no to something that really keeps us in a box, like it sounded like your first, the corporate gig was keeping you in a box. Whenever we show up and say no to those things, and when we say yes to the things that we really like, that gives such an example to other people. And oftentimes that's our purpose. If you really want to be an example to somebody, be a fucking example. Like you want to have a purpose, inspire somebody. And you don't have to do it by telling them whiz bang information, being their cool coach and having like the best fashion or anything like that. It's really about just being you and saying like, hey, when things didn't align, I wasn't into it. And now that I'm really figuring out what I want in my life, here, let me show you how to do it. I'm confident. I feel good. It's okay to be scared. It's okay to be nervous. It's okay to be worried. I think so often by us going through our own bullshit, us going through the trials and the obstacles that we have, I think that enough oftentimes is for the person watching is like, damn, well, they don't seem that special. I probably can do that too. Like, this is not really that big of a deal. To me, it's the greatest achievement to slag through something and for it to suck, but still make it on the other side. And then to tell somebody about it, be like, it was tough. I did it. No big deal. You can do it. It's not that hard. You got it. To me, purpose so much is driven to that, to the young person who's trying to find their purpose in life.
Yeah.
What do you have to say to them? What do you have to say? Like, if you're that person being like, well, I don't even know what the hell's going on. What do you tell them?
I would say go with what lights you up, like 100%. And I say that because I wish that I knew that along the way. Because I don't know, I just never trusted myself enough and trusted my intuition enough to go forward with things that lit me up, because I was always so afraid that people would judge me, or I was so scared of what people would think. And now that I actually tune into my intuition and I'm like, okay, does this feel good? Like, does this make me happy? And I go for it, like literal magic happens. And so I would say that to a younger person, like, just go with what lights you up, even if it just doesn't make sense.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. Is there any other wisdom or advice you feel called to share today?
Oh, I would say kind of going back to like, it's just never too late. Like, I know I'm still young and I realize that now, like I'm 28 and I'm like, I have so much more life to live. But when I was that 24-year-old and I was just so scared and nervous and I felt like there was nothing left for me, I don't know, I would tell myself that it really is never too late to start something, that you want to do or that you're excited about. Like you could literally be 50 and be like, oh, I want to start this like nonprofit organization, but you're terrified of what people think. Like it's truly never too late. And I feel like the universe or God, whatever you believe in, just puts something in your heart for a reason, and you just have to act on it, because if you don't, you're doing like a disservice to yourself and to the world.
Boom.
Yeah.
Mic drop.
It's, it's totally okay to pivot. And it's totally okay to pivot from the pivot and to pivot again. We're, I don't know how many careers we've been in or started at this point.
I don't even, yep.
I mean, I can remember a time where Britt was like, hey, I don't want to go in the salon anymore. I'm totally burned out. And she was doing fantastic work. The reviews were insane. Like on paper, everything was fantastic, but you could tell energy level. She was like, no. And what was amazing, she was like, I think I want to start doing photography. I think photography would be good. Same situation. So we get out and start doing photography, and we do that for a little bit. Britt's like, I really think I want to start doing hair again. But you know what happened in the hair business? The photographs of the hair got better.
Oh,
and so it's always about picking up that extra skill, like always trying to be doing complementary stuff, always be trying to get your like skill level up to the next, whatever it is. And if you don't know what the skill level should be, work on sales, work on what your sales game is, read some books on sales, go do door-to-door knocking, try to sell some knife sets. You want to get good at rejection, go try and sell some crap people don't want.
I went and learned tarot and then started reading all my clients' dead people.
See, it's also amazing on your tarot story. What I love about that, besides the fact that it's tarot, is the fact that when we are in doubt, when we're like, I'm not sure what direction to go, and it feels really hopeless, oftentimes there will be a person put in our path that will have the answer. Sometimes it's a dude that waits on us at the restaurant. Sometimes it's the person at the grocery store. Sometimes it's a tarot card reader. There's so many people out there who, and it's not, it seems like it's almost channeled. Because like a lot of times they'll give you wisdom where you're like, that's real specific. That's really weirdly specific that you gave me that. And, especially for the people who aren't using cards, I'm amazed sometimes. I'll go out and get the mail and I'll end up stopping by somebody and they'll tell me something. I'm like, that's a really weird, this is a weird convo. You didn't just tell me about the weather or ask me how my day was doing. You said something that I need to read this specific book, even though all I just said was, hey, how's it going? Like it's so incredible what we can find out if we'll actively listen and get out of our own heads. It's amazing. It's amazing how clear the path really can be.
It's so true. So one of the questions that we always like to ask to end the show is, what does living an elevated life mean to you?
Ooh, I would say living in purpose. And I know I talked about that before, but definitely living in your purpose and doing what lights you up. For sure. Because if you don't do that and you're forced to do things that you don't want to do, whether it's a job or a relationship, anything in particular, like you are not living your best possible life. And so I think truly just living a purposeful and happy life is the key to living an elevated life.
I love that. It's so true. So true. And is there anywhere that our listeners can come find you or soak up more of your wisdom? Like where do you want to send them?
Yeah. So my Instagram, you can pretty much find everything on there. I'm at styledby.kim. And then obviously the podcast, the Elevated Hairstylist Podcast.
Yes, I love it so much. Definitely go give it a listen. It's a great show and so aligned with all the wisdom and the magic that we love to teach here on The Elevated Life. So go check out The Elevated Hairstylist by Sweet Kim. It has been a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you
are such a bright light to only be 28 and to to pivot to make all this magic. I'm curious to see what your next move is, and I look forward to supporting you along the way.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Peace, everyone. Thank you so much.